Hi everyone and welcome back. In today's video we're going to be talking about line symmetry. So if you can open up your symmetry and surface area foldable to the first section that you labeled line symmetry, that's where we're going to be writing today. So at the very top of this section you should already have, first of all, the definition for line symmetry. And basically, to sum it up, if something has line symmetry, it means that it can be separated into identical halves at least once. So underneath whatever you've already got written there, let's just add a starred point that says can be separated into identical halves at least once. Okay, so as soon as you can see it can be separated at least once, that means into identical halves, pardon me, that means that it has line symmetry. And furthermore, if it has line symmetry, that means that it has at least one line of symmetry, which is the other key term that you should already have written in there. And underneath your definition for line of symmetry, let's just put a point, a starred point here, that notes that a line of symmetry can be vertical, which just means up and down, horizontal, which means side to side, or oblique. And oblique just means diagonal. So going diagonally that way or diagonally that way. So you can even just put in brackets, diagonal. So those are the different directions of lines of symmetry that you can have. Okay, so getting into some examples. The first thing that you will be asked to do in this unit, example 1, is to find lines of symmetry. Okay, and just so you know, we will be filling in 2 examples in this section, both with diagrams. So try not to write too big, okay? So in the first example that we're focusing on today, you're going to be given existing images and asked to identify if they have lines of symmetry and the directions of them. So in the first image that we have here, and of course these are just going to be sketches just to give you an idea. If I gave you a printout, you'd have some more precise images. So just sketch it out to the best of your ability. Okay, so the first image that we have basically looks like a simple little drawing of the contour of a house. Okay, so there's the first one. The second one looks like starts out looking almost like a rectangle, then comes up like that. I guess it's almost like a stretched out letter H. Again, just a sketch, it's not perfect. This is just to give you an idea of how lines of symmetry work. And then finally, the last one is basically like a perfect little X. Again, because it's a sketch, it's going to be a little hard, because part of symmetry is really the precision of it. So when we're just sketching it out for an idea, it makes it a little bit harder to see. But of course, you'll work through some practice questions as well to get the hang of this. Okay, so I'm going to choose a different color here now. And what the question asks us to do is to find the line or lines of symmetry state the number of lines of symmetry and the direction. Okay, so remember when we're talking about direction, that brings us back to this part where we said you can have vertical, you can have horizontal, you can have oblique. So that's what we're looking for here. So in this first one, so remember, lines of symmetry is all about separating your visual, your image into perfect halves. So if I were to separate this first one into half horizontally, okay, that wouldn't quite line up, because what would happen is it would come down to the sides and then you'd see the little roof part of it repeated. And that's not how it looks. So we definitely don't have a horizontal line of symmetry. Vertical, if we go straight down the center and we imagine the mirror image of the one side over top of the other, well, it would match up. So we have at least one line of symmetry, and that is vertical. So I'm just going to write vertical here. Oblique, that would mean going across the image. And again, you got to visualize your perfect halves, your mirror image. Well, then you'd have a second roof type shape coming out the side like this, and that's definitely not how it looks either. So that means that we have one line of symmetry for this first one. Okay, so as you can see, I can sort of just visualize it and sketch it out. If you have a hard time doing that, if that's just not the way your brain works, that's no problem. Another option is to use some sort of thin paper or tracing paper or even a wax paper. And if you actually trace the image through, especially when you're given a printed paper or you're looking at your textbook where the images are precise, if you trace it through, and then I'm just cutting it out here, then you can actually move it around, fold it up, and see how it matches. So I mean, if I folded the top down, definitely doesn't match up with the bottom. So that's a no. There's not a horizontal one. Vertical, if I fold it up along the up and down axis of the shape, then my two sides match up. So like I said right here, that means I have a vertical line of symmetry. If you were having a tough time visualizing the oblique, well, this is a really good way to do it. You can fold it diagonally, and my two halves are definitely not matching up there. You can see the little roof part is just overhanging. So anytime you're in doubt, you're having a hard time figuring out if there's a line of symmetry, this is always an option. So in your notes, you can just go ahead. You don't have to draw out everything that I sketched here. You can just go ahead and mark down where the actual line of symmetry that we determined is. So this vertical one here. Okay, so this next one, so vertical for sure, right down the center here. If I trace this out and cut it out, we could fold it to match those two sides up perfectly. So there's one. Horizontal. If I go straight down the center this way, this would fold up and match up. That's a perfect mirror image. So for sure we've got one vertical and we've got one horizontal. So oblique, that's kind of the tricky part. And like I said, if you're ever not sure, just trace it through like we did last time. Wax paper, tracing paper, even line paper is pretty thin. And then cut it out and test it. Especially when you're working with precise images and not just sketches. This can be a big help. Okay, but I know that there's a lot of you who have very strong spatial intelligence and can really just look at these, which is awesome. I'm always impressed by that. But not everybody has that, and that's okay. So we said horizontal. Yep, matches up that way. Oops, sorry, we said vertical. Matches up that way, so vertical, yes. We said horizontal. So if we fold it down the middle that way, matches up, so that's a for sure yes. And then finally oblique, if we folded it diagonally, no, that definitely is not a match. That creates a whole new shape. Okay, as soon as you draw a line and you notice that it's going to be creating a whole new shape, that means it's not a line of symmetry. There's not identical halves there. So no, that's not going to work. So that one, we've got two lines of symmetry. Okay, so now for the last one. So down the center vertically, that is a perfect mirror image. That would match up there. And horizontally, again, we've also got a mirror image there. That matches up perfectly. Ooh, but let's go on here because look at, if we draw a line here, now we're kind of looking at it to the side like a plus sign. That's also going to match up. And same thing here. Okay, again, if we're looking at a plus sign that direction, those two sides are mirror images as well. So how many identical halves was that? 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of identical halves. Because we have the vertical, we have the horizontal, and then we have the oblique in each direction, 2 oblique. For a total of 4 lines of symmetry in that one. Okay, and you know, when we're talking about the oblique ones, it doesn't mean that it has to be perfectly diagonal. Which is why we actually use the word oblique instead of diagonal. It just means, oblique just means it's not straight up and down, it's not straight side to side. So it could go slightly at a different angle, but in that case, for this one, it's really not going to work. You will occasionally see designs where you have even more than 2 oblique lines of symmetry. But for this one, whoops, kind of tracing it a bit messy, sorry. But for this one, even if we cut it out to double check. The other thing is, even without cutting it out, you could kind of just fold it on the paper, because you have got a thin tracing paper. You can kind of see if it matches up just with folding the paper. If you don't have scissors or you don't feel like cutting it out, that's also an option. So I just want to show you that other than those two oblique lines where we turn it and it's kind of, look at it as like a plus sign. So here it is. So vertical matches up. Horizontal matches up. Oblique matches up. But if we change the oblique line slightly, if we put it slightly at a slight different angle, you can see now it's not matching up. So my two oblique lines are pretty precise, and it is definitely limited to those two. So there's the other oblique one. So that's it, 4 lines of symmetry for that one. Okay, so that's what it looks like when you're given images and you have to find lines of symmetry. Okay, so thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.